Welcome to the second episode of Bollywood TALKies with Outlook. I'm your host, Mitrajit Bhattacharya. This week, my guest is the creator of some of the biggest blockbusters of Hindi movie industry. And his latest one is waiting to reopen the second innings for Bollywood post the extended COVID crisis break. Ladies and gentlemen, let me present to you the man of the moment, Kabir Khan. Welcome, Kabir.
Thank you.
Thanks. So, how is the lockdown treating you? Any hidden talent that you have discovered about yourself?
Unfortunately, no. I thought I will be able to sort of get better as a cook. Actually, I shouldn't use the word better because I'm a hopeless cook, and Minnie is a fabulous cook. So I thought I might be able to do that. But no, I've been, I think, better at eating than cooking. No, actually, Mitrajit, I've been taking it easy. I have not taken it upon myself to put that pressure of being productive in this lockdown. I'm coming off an extremely busy period pre the lockdown because I was, just literally 20 days away from the release of my film 83. So for me, it was like I was sprinting and I hit a wall like sprinting. So I'm taking it easy.
Watching, reading, listening to, what have you been watching, reading, listening to? Any uncut gems?
I've been watching a lot things that were on my bucket list. I first caught up with some of, because I often say the problem when you're making your own film is that you stop watching other films. You're just so busy that you just don't get time to, watch anything else. And in my case, I had actually just finished two back-to-back really ambitious projects. I can easily say two of my most ambitious projects till date, which is the web series for Amazon called The Forgotten Army, and straight in from there into 83. So the last 3 years, really, I've missed so many films that the initial first sort of 2 weeks of the lockdown gave me an opportunity to catch up on a lot of the films that I'd missed from abroad and from our industry. And then after sort of that initial checklist was done, I saw some very interesting regional cinema, which I had not been watching for a long time, and I must say that's in a certain sense been the joy of this lockdown for me, discovering a lot of great regional cinema, especially from the south. Saw some beautiful gems from Kerala. Yeah, and otherwise reading a bit. Again, reading, what happens is that we tend to, as filmmakers, especially me, because I do so much of research in my films, I tend to end up only reading books associated with the subject I'm working on. So if I'm doing 83, I'll end up reading only cricket books. If I'm doing The Forgotten Army, I read everything about World War II. So now at least one is getting a opportunity to flip through books. I'm not very good with Kindle reading, so it's not been that prolific for me because one didn't sort of realize this is happening, so one didn't go and get the books and keep them in place. But yeah, I've been managed to do enough.
So I will ask you the next question, which is, I feel you are going through the Djokovic moment. Why Djokovic moment? Because he's just in the prime form, having won the Australian Open, and boom, there is no French Open, there is no Wimbledon. So he's really feeling restless. So I think your situation is pretty much like that.
I said the only difference being that I was stopped in the final set. The last game was yet to be played, and I was stopped. And so it's Djokovic without winning the Grand Slam.
Perfect. So everyone has and is going through his or her journey during this lockdown. But yours, as I said, is a little more significant because so much is riding on your shoulders personally, professionally, at a larger industry level with the 83 release. Would you take us on board with what's exactly happening?
So yes, you're right. I mean, in a sense, 83 was sort of one of the big releases coming up, along with Suryavanshi. These are the two big releases coming up towards the end of March and the beginning of April, and then the lockdown happened. So obviously, as and when the lockdown is lifted and people will be going back to the theaters, I think the industry is looking at these two films as the crowd pullers, as probably the films that will start getting the audiences back into the theaters. Because that's a huge responsibility, and something that I don't think about too much. But but that's the reality. I think as far as 83 is concerned, we were almost ready. There's, I think, about 2 weeks of post-production which was left. So as and when the lockdown eases up, that I think will be completed easily. But I think the real test will be as to when will you really be able to go back to the theaters. I mean, that's something that's up in the air, right? We've been discussing about it. We have lots of these chats within the industry, with the exhibitors, with the studios, but nobody can really come up with an answer because your guess is as good as mine. Ultimately, I think nobody will have to tell us. It's something that we will be able to feel collectively. It'll be a palpable feeling where we'll say, okay, I think I can go back into a theater and I put on a mask and go back into a theater. And the day I feel comfortable about going back into the theater is the day I think I should be ready to release 83. There's no point that I'm nervous and scared about going into a theater and I imagine that people will come back and watch my film. That's not going to happen. So that's why we stand. I think it's a wait and watch policy as of now.
So my next question is, will you wait and watch for a theatrical release and go for a two-down position to bat like Virat Kohli, and may not open maybe?
No, I think, see, we will wait. In the lineup of releases, as of now, as far as dates are concerned, Suryavanshi would come before us. Having said that, if Rohit wants to wait and I want to come before that, I'm sure that is something we can discuss, or depending on which date either of us want. But we're very clear, as far as I'm concerned. I'm pretty clear right now that I'm waiting for a theatrical. I'm not. There's a lot of talk happening about releasing direct to OTT, and it's become the new sort of thing to discuss. Every trade analyst, every film trade analyst, everybody wants to just discuss, the going on. But for me, I'm very clear. I've made 83 as a big screen experience, and I literally want like every theater to have the feel of a stadium when the film releases. So I'm going to wait. As of now, as I said, we don't know how long this will extend, but we're ready for a long wait.
Any comments on the mind-boggling offer which is doing the rounds from OTT for your movie? Any comments on that?
I mean, yes. I mean, I've also been reading a lot about it, and about the fact that we probably got the biggest offer till date. And yes, it is a very big offer, but no, as of now, as I said, I'm not thinking of any other options. We made it for the big screen. Of course, we will eventually, of course, be playing on the OTT platforms. But as the initial release, I'm pretty clear that we wanted to be a theatrical release, and only then go on to satellite and OTT.
So that's really comforting for the exhibitors. We move on to the next question. 83 really is not an ordinary movie. The emotion of the nation really rides on that win of 1983 World Cup, which most of our current generation, which is living today, have missed out watching on television. Both excited and nervous at the same time, that probably more than half of India would have this as their first exposure to that epic 1983 World Cup series which India had.
I'm super excited. I'm not at all nervous because it's just such a magical story. It's such a special story. I've often said that, everybody, anybody who's over 40 remembers that day where they were when India won the World Cup for the first time. And anybody who's below 40, the youth, they've all heard about it, but they don't know the details. And that's what I'm excited about, because what happens is, and this is something that was Ranveer's reaction also when I first narrated to him. When I told him I wanted him to play Kapil Dev in the context of the 1983 World Cup, he was like excited. Oh yeah, Kapil Dev and a legend. But then when I told him the story, I told him the story of how we were one of the most underrated teams in the world, and what a dismal performance we'd had in the World Cups prior to 1983. That is something that was a shock for him, because again, he's born after 83, right? So that is what is important for the youth, and I think that's what they'll really enjoy, because we managed to capture that very well in the film. That today, to the youth, when you say cricketers, they imagine superstars, millionaires, driving their fancy cars, the entourage, and then suddenly you tell them about the team of 83, which had no money, not even money enough to like literally wash their clothes and give their clothes for laundry, and they used to be paid some 15 pounds a day in which they had to eat and make their phone calls, get their clothes washed. So I mean, their whole ethos is so different that the youth will really love that sort of, the classic underdog story of somebody of a team that nobody believed in. They themselves didn't believe in them, and how they literally pulled each other up and went on to win that cup, that historic moment. So I've often said this, it's not about the sport, it's not about cricket, it's about the human story. Of course, the fact that it's cricket is 1983, it's got to do with our living legends like Kapil Dev and Jimmy Amarnath and Kirmani and all these people is a great bonus. But you replace cricket with kabaddi, the story still stands, and that's the true test of a good story. I truly believe nobody will come to see a film to watch cricket. Cricket they can watch, the actual teams playing. It's the story of how this underdog team won glory for India.
Even a lot of 40 plus people, including both of us, I mean, for sure, I have also not watched the World Cup on television. I have actually heard it on radio, and including people who had television, they could not watch Kapil's epic innings against Zimbabwe. So
Yes.
I think there is a lot of excitement
Yes.
to actually see that being enacted as
Yes.
the best representation of what happened that day. Could you just take us through what kind of research did you have to do to?
One of the highlights of the 1983 World Cup is that historic innings of Kapil Dev, when he hit 175 not out and thereby creating a world record at a time when it looked like we completely out. Like, we were 17 for 5 and we were written off, and this was a do or die match. If we had lost this, we would have, team would have been flying back home. And so, and ironically, this was a match which BBC did not cover. That's the day they decided to go on a token strike, and as a result of which there was not a single second of any film footage about this match. And it's an innings that has been described. It's become, of course, of mythical proportions. But even when you speak, you hear people like Sunil Gavaskar speak, and this is something that I remember in my research. I heard him in one interview where the commentator, the person interviewing him was asking about this Tunbridge Wells, and Sunil Gavaskar said that, oh yeah, that was truly a game-changing knock. And the interviewer said, yeah, obviously it was game-changing. You guys are 17 for 5. He says, no, don't get me wrong. I don't mean that game. I mean the game of cricket. It changed the game of cricket. And to hear that from a legend like Gavaskar, to say that never before, never after has he seen an innings like that. Or even Shrikant, when he talks about it even today, he goes starry-eyed. He says, I've been a great fan of people like Viv Richards and all these people, but I've never seen any person bat the way Kapil did. So for me, it was a huge responsibility as a filmmaker that I need to really capture correctly and show what happened, on that day in Tunbridge Wells. Now, how do you do that, right? It happened 36 years ago, and there's no footage of it. So for me, 83, the whole process of 83 was a very exciting pre-production, because I really approached it as my backdrop as a documentary filmmaker. I really approached it like that. It took 2 years of research, and I just went to Tunbridge Wells, and we got in touch with everybody there. It's in a very affluent, the Kent County, and we spoke to members of that club. And we asked them, can we get people who were there? And we met many gentlemen who had been witnesses to that innings, and then they started describing, and from different perspectives. They was all placed in different places, and then I started getting the true picture of what happened there. Not only what was happening on the ground, but the excitement that was running in the stadium, outside the stadium, the kind of things that Kapil was doing. And so I must say, yeah, that's definitely going to be one of the highlights of the film.
So you have spent a long time. I know I have been meeting you in that stage on scripting, prepping, casting, and shooting for 83. All these aspects took a lot of time. And when if you could just take us through a bit on each of them. Like, for example, when you were scripting, I'm sure you had 100 pieces of story and you had to bring it down to 20, 30 to tell.
Yeah.
Similarly, casting. I mean, I was just going through the casting list. I mean, you almost having unending. You even have Pankaj Tripathi as Mansingh. So I think each of this process was very elaborate as far as 83 is concerned. Just take us to how you prepared as a filmmaker.
So, Mitrajit, it's just one of those moments when, as a filmmaker, you realize that you've just, in a certain sense, been blessed by getting a certain story. It's, I often say sometimes you don't choose the stories choose you. And a film like 83, come on, it could have been made by anybody. It's a story staring us in our face for the last 36 years, right? Everybody knows it's the greatest sporting triumph of India. Everybody knows that what a golden moment for India it was. At the world stage, one of the first big achievements post independence. Why was it not made? I mean, there was something. I'm not spiritual, superstitious. I don't believe in destiny. But when it comes to moments like this, I believe there's something working. It just waited for me. So when I got this opportunity, when I got this story, I was very clear. I'm going to leave no stone unturned. I'm going to absolutely spare no effort in making sure that this becomes the best film that could have been made on 83. And for that, as you said, we put in a lot of effort, not only in the research, because initially the information that we had was internet based, but strangely, and this is something really strange about 83, is that despite the fact that anybody and everybody above 40, if you stop them and ask them about 83, they'll have that one story about it. Yet there's no one definitive book or a collection of books or any one account that you can really lean on. So it meant that I needed to actually go out and get it from the primary sources. So of course, the first stage was to just spend as much time as I could with the players, with the sort of key players who had all these stories. That was a gold mine of information. Once I had the story from the players, which of course is like the principal story. But again, now the players can only give to the perspective of what was happening with them, right, in the locker room, and on the ground, and what was happening with them in their hotels and when they were traveling. But there's a lot of excitement about what was happening around it, right, in the stadiums, in the stands, how the audiences reacting, the NRIs. It's a huge moment for the diaspora. In the diaspora in UK, all of them said unanimously that that day changed it all for us. That before that we were just second class citizens, and after the 25th of June 1983, suddenly it was cool to be Indians. I remember meeting this senior barrister of Indian origin, and he said, I was in a privileged school, I was in an affluent school, but I was just another kid, right? Just another kid in the class. And he says, suddenly after that, I went back to school and my classmates looked at me and said, hey, aren't you an Indian? And he said, suddenly it was cool to be an Indian. So that's the reason why I said, okay, let me really spend a lot of time on the research. So I did a lot of research, kept going. I mean, for about a year and a half, I was literally spending a month in London and in England, actually, in all the sort of locations that they had played, trying to get in touch with commentators, umpires, players, people who were in the things. And I must mention here that Lords is completely sort of took on this project, and they opened up all their archives, which are incredible. That's right. And that's something I often say, that's one problem that we as a country and a culture have, is that we don't archive. I think it's because we sort of come from an oral culture, so we believe in that the father told the son will tell his son. We don't archive it. So there was so much that I was missing out on. Like, even when I was speaking to a lot of journalists, I could not get some of the material from them, but I found it in the Lord's archives. So research was extensive. Casting was very extensive because yes, everybody in India plays cricket, and I had actors coming from everywhere saying that we play cricket. But the point is, you have to play cricket well enough to be able to portray the legends of 1983, right? So our casting process was very interesting. I said, so outside my casting director's office, we created a pitch, and the actors had to first come and bowl or bat, show us their prowess as cricketers and how athletic they were, and only if they crossed and passed in that test did they go in for their acting audition. So, and thousands, I can't even count the number of us. I mean, who doesn't want to portray one of the one of the legends of 1983. So we had so many choices. So that took a very long process. So I think every process in 83 was, and more, I mean, what I want to really mention is, yes, they were very extensive process and very time consuming, but they were also probably the most enjoyable pre-production of any of my films, because every moment was something that I enjoyed, and I just had a ball putting this whole film together. The journey, touchwood, has been beautiful.
Even the shooting process was quite extensive. I mean, you spent a lot of time shooting it all over.
We were in England for
Yeah,
4 months. We were there throughout the World Cup while the World Cup was being played.
that's right.
Uh, yeah, because that's a cricket season. You have to shoot in the cricket season. You needed those grounds because we had the great opportunity and the privilege of being able to shoot in some of the real locations. We shot at Lords with the first crew from anywhere in the world to be able to get that kind of access in Lords. I mean, we shot in their locker rooms, the famous long room of Lords, where the members sit and the teams come walking through onto the ground. We shot at the Oval, we shot at Tunbridge Wells. So there were so many of these real locations that we got to shoot. That I think that's what made the. I often used to say, all this was happening in a certain sense because I think we were literally being blessed by the gods of cricket. This is something that we would often talk about, how everything went was so beautifully smooth. Touchwood again. There were World Cup matches that were being stopped for rain, and we never lost a single day to rain. It was just one of those crazy coincidences that whenever we would move indoor for a scene, it would rain all day. The moment we come out to shoot cricket, it would be a dry day, and that happened on so many occasions that I said there's something more than just luck happening over here.
You're just making a lot of filmmakers very jealous. Okay, my next question. There are various very, very funny stories with cricketers while the World Cup was on, like somebody missed his holiday, had to cancel his holiday in New York. So, can you just share a couple of them?
See, so again, I don't want to, say too much
Yeah,
because there will be spoilers, and these are moments you'll all enjoy
yeah,
in the film. Yeah, this is the moment about them. That's in the public. Well, I mean, a lot of the stories are already in the public space, but this one has recently been written about. Also, it's not just one person. It's actually what had happened was that when they were invited for the 1983 World Cup, you know, the team thought, okay, great, we're going to go to London, play cricket, but nobody expected to go beyond the group matches, right? So Srikanth, who had just recently been married in March, and some of the other players, they all said, okay, we've got a ticket up to London. Let's just chip in another 10,000 rupees and we get a ticket all the way to New York. So they said, we thought, we'll book from Bombay to New York, and on the way we'll play the World Cup and then carry on once the group matches are over. So 7 of them decided that, okay, they told their wives to come. And for Srikanth, he said it was like an extended honeymoon because he'd just been married a few months ago. And they all booked their tickets to fly out on on the night of the day that the group matches were ending. So it was like 22nd was the semi-finals, and 21st they were all expected to fly out. So that was such a moment where suddenly after Tunbridge Wells, they said it all changed. Because after Tunbridge Wells, they said, okay, this is serious. I think we have a shot at it. And how, without any complaint, one by one, they started canceling their tickets. So that was, it just shows that they themselves at that point in time didn't believe in themselves. They never thought that they'll be able to, go and reach the semi-finals, let alone go on to win the World Cup.
You have made it amply clear that this is a movie on the epic win of India and not a biopic of Kapil Dev.
Yeah, it's being erroneously sometimes being reported as.
Yeah, so the question therefore is, like, Ranveer Singh being Ranveer Singh, and he has this amazing energy to hog all the limelight in terms of knowingly or unknowingly. That's the energy he exudes. Can you just take us through the other actors who you have cast in 1983, 83, and who have played other stalwarts like Sunny Gavaskar or Srikanth or Balwinder Sandhu, some of them?
It's been a fabulous ensemble cast that's come together, and for me, this was a very important process. I'll tell you why. Because what I what I realized while I was telling the story was that it's such a team story. And what really hits you even today after 36 years, 37 years, if you meet Team 83, they're just a bunch of boys, even today. It takes them 2 minutes to start sort of, pulling each other's legs and, joking and, the sort of certain extent of locker room talk that happens between them, even at this age. And I said, if I can capture this, and this for me, that's very important. I have to capture the spirit of Team 83. And that's half the battle won, because that's what is unique about the story. I don't think that kind of a ethos exists anymore in teams. I think what has happened is that today we have superstars in teams, different power centers, kind of simple, innocent bonding with no trappings of money, stardom, entourage. One man with the whole team. PR Mansingh. They didn't have coaches. They didn't have, a physiotherapist or a masseuse. It was just one man. So I think that culture of that team was so important that when I was putting the team together, one of the very important elements for me was, will this person gel in with the team, or will it stand out? I'm not saying on camera. On camera, of course, it's my job to make it look like that. But I wanted them to be like that off camera too, because I realized that that's the only way you can actually really get it together. So we did that whole casting. We've got so many names at cost of missing out on somebody. We've got Tahir as Sunil Gavaskar, we've got Amy Virk as Balwinder Singh Sandhu, we've got Hadi Sandhu as Madan Lal, we've got Sakev as Jimmy, we've got, there's so many I could give it, go on and on. But the point is, what was really very, very successful for me was something that I decided that I want to do, and which is like a boot camp. And this is something that, of course, has been spoken about, and we've seen it in, we even released a small film about it. I decided these boys need to live like a team without any trappings of their own, because I mean, a lot of them are successful actors, right? Ranveer is a superstar, a lot of the others are also successful stars. I said, no, let's go to a place which is cut off from any place else. So we all went together and went to this beautiful stadium in Dharamshala, and we stayed there for 10 days, and we all lived like a team. It was 6 o'clock wake up, 7 o'clock in the bus, we drove to the stadium. We would have 3-4 hours of extended practice of playing cricket. We would go back, have lunch, maybe have a nap. Again, evening, we would be back playing cricket, working out, individual skills. And then in the evening, it was common dinner, and then everybody was having that bonding that happened with that team. By the end of those 10 days, I was very confident that I'm sitting on a winner, because I could see the dynamics fall in place. And what was beautiful was I could almost see it was replicating the dynamics of Team 83. The way the individual actors took on the mantle of their respective players, I could see the team in front of my eyes. And this is something not only for me, it was ratified by some of the originals who came down. Kapil Dev, Jimmy Amarnath, they came to that camp, and they saw it and they said, oh my God, the energy is exactly the same. Ranveer actually became like the de facto captain of the team, even off camera.
So next question is about Ranveer Singh. I know you waited for long to have him on board, because he was going through his other commitments, including his personal commitment of marriage and stuff like that. How is it, or how was it working with Ranveer? Because you were working for the first time with him. How was it to work with Ranveer Singh?
So I could not think of anybody except Ranveer Singh for this role. I mean, apart from the fact that yes, his commitment, his physicality, the fact that I really enjoy his performances, and I know what he brings to the table as an actor. There's a persona, right? I think it's sometimes it's very important to get the persona right, because yes, today a lot is being made about how similar he looks to Kapil, but when we started out, I wasn't even aiming for that. The fact that we've achieved that, of course, a large part of it credit goes, apart from, of course, Mr. Gaikwad, the person who designed the look, a lot of credit goes to the fact that Ranveer has basically captured the expressions. It's always about the expression, and I've often said that it's not a lookalike contest we're going for. We just, at some point, the audience has to say, okay, this is Ranveer Singh and he's playing Kapil Dev. But the way Ranveer sort of dived into the material, and an actor of his right now at how successful he is, he didn't need to take out 4 or 5 months and train for this film. Very few actors are doing that these days, but he did, and that showed his commitment. So it was the whole process. I think, and also Ranveer is an actor I've realized who loves the process. He loves uh, the approach to a film. Okay, what is the research being done? What is the detailing of the character? In terms of the clothes, in terms of the makeup, in terms of the line, the way you speak, and that's something I also really enjoy. I love the process. I hate going into a film feeling underprepared. I love just the process of going through the research and setting it all up. So in that sense, I think just the process put us together, and we were really confident of each other when we by the time we started shooting. Extremely committed. I mean, his energy levels is something that, of course, everybody knows that, right? It's legendary now, Ranveer's energy levels. But what really struck me was the sort of commitment with which he comes in order to grasp the character. He's a unique actor, which I've actually told him, he's like a chameleon, right? It's very rare in actors to be able to, and it's a great quality, that they can change so much that today, if actually you look at Ranveer's last 3 or 4 films and you see those characters and him playing it, you'll probably see these are 4 different human beings. This is not the
That's right.
same man. Kapil Dev is not the same man as in Gully Boy, or is not the same person as in Bajirao, is not the same person as in Padma. They just look like different individuals. And that's the greatness that Ranveer has. He just
So,
manages to grab.
so I'll quickly take in a few audience questions at this stage, and they are related to acting. So I think they are quite interesting. Madhu Agarwal from Calcutta, Kolkata asks about method acting and your views on where method acting can be used.
So, see, I mean, whether an actor wants to adopt method acting or not, that's the actor's decision and prerogative. As a director, I will never push my actor to adopt a certain kind of acting. I mean, the process of which they come into the film and what they do in preparation is their decision. So, if somebody is a method actor and they want to use that, great. Some actors are super with no preparation. I've worked with actors who just come and are sitting doing something and suddenly you say action and boom, they are that character and you can't fault them at all. And they'll be as perfect as somebody who's probably spent the last 3 months becoming a method actor and becoming that character, eating like that character, sleeping like that character, speaking like that character. So I mean that's totally the actor's prerogative. As far as I'm concerned, once they come on screen in front of the camera for me, I need to extract the performance which is correct for my character. What craft they're using to be able to do that is totally their prerogative.
So there is a related question by Manish Tiwari from Allahabad. He asked that after getting the character, how should an actor prepare? So partly you've answered, but if you want to just add a little bit on that.
You need to know a lot about the character. So you need to know back. See, there's only that much written in a script. Yes, of course. Sometimes when it's a biopic, then of course you have the luxury of being able to read up on them, see them, or whatever. There's a lot written about them. The fact that there's a biopic being made on them, chances are they are famous people, and that's why the biopic is being made. So you can read up a lot on them and maybe see them if they're contemporary. But if it's not a biopic, if it's even fictional, there is only that much that's written about a character in a script, right? So I think what you need to do is you take that from the script, but then in your mind you need to create the backstories. You need to create where this character came from with the help of the director and the writers. You can create that. So then that character's motivations for each scene, the way that character would think in that scene becomes clear to you, because it's not about the lines that you say. It's about at that point in time, what are you thinking? And honestly, this sounds like a cliche, but the camera sees that. And I've spoken to a lot of actors and I've asked them, okay, they were thinking it through. And when you think, so you can't be saying the line with certain expressions, but thinking about your next meal, that dishonesty comes through your eyes. You have to be in that moment, at that point in time. Mentally, you have to be going through whatever that character is going through. And if you are able to achieve that, it's not easy. It's easier said than done for a director to say, do that. It's not easy. It takes training, it takes craft, it takes life experience. But if you're able to do that and genuinely live that moment like that character, it'll come through.
So I'll take in one more question at this stage. It's from Fardeen Khan from Haryana. He's asking an actor who's doing theater, ads, short films, and honing his skills. When and how does he know that he's ready for the big screen and shift to Mumbai? I think it's a more practical question.
It's very difficult for anybody to say that, and it's very, I think it's ultimately you have to decide. I think you have to feel comfortable. You have to have that burning desire that, okay, I feel I can do this. And if you've actually spent time honing your craft, you have done theater, you have done short films, you've done enough acting, and you feel ready, you should come. Yes, sometimes actors land up with no sort of hours given to the process of acting, right? To those people, I say no. That's being unfair. Don't think that it's a frivolous profession, right? It's a very serious profession. There's a lot of hard work that goes into acting. People spend years and years. And look at it. Just recently, we've lost one of our greatest legends, Irfan. Look at the number of years Irfan spent in just perfecting his craft before he finally got his due. So I mean, that's very important. You can't just land up. Yes, I mean, talent, as people say, is God given, and you might be really talented, but that talent needs to be honed. You need to also have craft to be able to then express as an actor what you want to do. So it's very important to then follow up on your passion, train, and then come. When you're ready to come, that's totally your decision. I don't think anybody in this world can tell you when you're ready to come.
You have also been in the forefront of big budget OTT content creation with The Forgotten Army having released very recently. How was the experience of creating a period series shot across countries and with so much of computer graphics and post-production? How was the experience?
Again, one of our most ambitious projects ever. In the case of Forgotten Army, I often say actually the research is 20 years long, because Forgotten Army is one of my
That's
first
right.
documents that I made.
1999 you made it. That's right. Yeah.
Forgotten Army was 1996. 1996 is when I shot it, and then it took a couple of years to come out. So I said, that is again a story which there is not much material available, right? It's a story of the Azad Hind Fauj, and as the saying goes, history is written by those who win the wars, and unfortunately, Azad Hind Fauj lost the war, and there's very little available on them. But I had this great advantage, again, the advantage that I had in ATC also, that I had a great advantage that I managed to get two survivors and two veterans of that army, Captain Lakshmi Sehgal, the commander of the women's regiment, Rani Jhansi regiment, and Colonel Gurbakh Singh Dhillon, one of the three who were put on trial at the Red Fort by the British, Dhillon Sehgal Khanawaz. So they were 86 at that point in time, and I drove with them for 3 months from Singapore through Singapore, Malaysia, Burma, all the way back to India, retracing the route that the Azad Hind Fauj had taken. More than half a century earlier in World War II. And
when did you do that journey? When did you undertake that journey?
That journey was 96. That journey was 96, and in a certain sense, I had this incredible privilege of being told history by those who made that history. So I was very young at that point in time, and for me to get that opportunity as a young filmmaker to hear that story, I think that's why I often say that's the reason why that story became sacred to me. And that, if there's one story that made me want to become a filmmaker, it's the story of the Forgotten Army. It's the story of the Azad Hind. It was almost, by the end of it, it's the promise I made to Dhillon Saab and Lakshmi Sehgal that one day I will narrate this story to a wider audience. And that fire didn't leave me for 20 years. Sometimes we get very passionate about stories, but in 6 months, 7 months, the story exits. This is that one story that just refused to leave me. And anybody who's close to me and has seen my journey as a filmmaker knows that, that this was my first script. I came to Bombay with the script of Forgotten Army to make this my first film. Of course, very early on, I realized that this is too ambitious a project. And as a complete outsider who did not know not a single soul, not one person in this industry when I landed up from Delhi, I realized that there's no way I'll be able to make such a big film. Because even when I finally did make it, it turned out to be my most ambitious, most expensive project ever. So that's when I decided, oh, okay, let me make a smaller film, and that's when I wrote my first feature film, Kabul Express, which was based on my own documentary experiences of what happened in Afghanistan with me and my friend in 2001.
So, how is the OTT space developing? Are you happy with what is happening in that space, and are you planning something in the near future?
So I was very happy with my experience with Amazon. I did this for Amazon Prime, and I must say they were solid collaborators and really backed me up. As I said, it was a very ambitious project, an expensive project, but they stood by me. We didn't have stars; we used newcomers, who of course I'm so glad
That's
were
right.
really, and they were brilliant actors. But to be able to mount such a big project with newcomers, I mean, that's something that all credit to Amazon for doing that. I'm very happy with it. I sometimes feel that there are certain stories which are sometimes they lend themselves better to OTT storytelling. And Forgotten Army is probably one of them. If I'd made it as a mainstream Hindi cinema, maybe it would have led to oversimplification. Whereas in OTT, you can spend a little more time, even though Forgotten Army is a mini series that was only 5 parts. That's also because it was a film screenplay that I converted into a mini series screenplay. But if there's a story I get today or sometime in the near future which I feel is better suited to OTT platform, I will definitely go for the OTT platform, because I think it's a great platform. It's a platform that's growing by the day. We're seeing some fantastic work happening. There's some really cutting edge work happening there. So absolutely, I think I'm not going to say I'm a feature filmmaker and I just made one series for OTT. I think I'm a storyteller. If my story is going to be told better as a feature film, I'll make a feature film. If that story is going to be told better as a series on a OTT platform, that's the way I'll go.
So, do we see you have limited time as a big filmmaker, but do we see Kabir Khan films taking up young directors, good, capable directors' work and taking it to the OTT big daddies? Would we
So
see
I'm
that kind of collaboration?
Of course, absolutely. Because yes, there is some merit in the fact that in OTT platforms, as a showrunner, you could have a lot of control over the creative process and be able to mentor maybe a younger person in putting together their show. We already are making some movement towards there. It takes me time because I'm very clear about one thing, and that's the reason why my ambition is not to become really like a producer or make a production house. I'm very clear on this. I will only produce a script if that script is good enough for me to say, hey, I want to make that. And if
Correct.
I'm excited about that script, then I will be happy to produce it and let another director do it. But if I'm not happy of a script, I won't be happy producing it for somebody else either. It has to be a script that really excites me as a director, and then I become a producer.
So you are a quintessential big star director, having worked with A-listers like Salman, Katrina, Ranveer, Deepika, John, Saif. It just goes on. Your experience of working with superstars, how easy or how difficult is it?
I don't think it's easy or difficult. It's every time is unique. I think there's no one way. I think every one of them comes with their own unique sort of pros and cons. And I think filmmaking is about that. I often say being a director is actually about managing people more than just your lenses and your camera angles and your script. Because yes, of course, still your script and everything, your creativity, they're writing it. But once you're on set, it's actually about being able to manage 100 to 150 people and convince them to act together to be able to realize your vision, right? So therefore, I often say it's about people management. It's about making sure everybody over here, because none of see they're all performing their roles. They're all performing. They're experts in their craft in whatever, whether it's a sound designer, or whether it's my DOP, or whether it's the actors, or whether it's the light boys, or whether it's my production people. They're all very good at their work, right? But the vision for the entire film is lying with the director. So it's the director's job and responsibility to take them all together and convince all of them to work passionately towards realizing their vision. So it's all about people management. And of course, in that, the bulk comes in managing the stars, right? Because they are one of the most important elements of your film. Ultimately, people are going to see their faces. They are going to be, bringing your story to life on the screens. So I think they all come with their unique issues, advantages and disadvantages, and you have to approach it like that. But it's fun. I mean, see, I can't shy away from the fact that yes, I've been working with a lot of big stars. I can't shy away from the fact that in mainstream cinema, big stars are necessary. They bring, they put the bums on the seats. They bring in a large audience. Having said that, if the film doesn't have a life of its own, it'll collapse in a day or two. But if a film is good and it works with the presence of a big star, it'll go that much further. And I've seen that. I've seen both cases. I've seen some of my films collapsing. I've seen some of my films, going a distance which I would never have imagined. So I think it's in mainstream cinema. The presence of a star does help as long as that star is suitable for that character. If you try and fit a star in deliberately, into a character which actually is not suitable, then chances are that it won't really work.
I will definitely ask you at least a line each on Bajrangi Bhaijaan and Ek Tha Tiger, because these are really not just commercial blockbusters. They were also critically highly acclaimed. And my question is, what does it take to conceptualize something which probably is a 300 crore kind of a film from day one? I remember having texted you a day before Bajrangi released that, Kabir, it would be a 300 crores plus, and it went on to become much bigger hit if you add the theatrical collection worldwide. Like, it just China made, I don't know how many hundreds of crores. So how do you even plan and conceptualize when you're working on films which are from day one looks like a 300-400 crores film?
So, I believe that you can't really plan and design a 300 crore film, because if that was the case, and if anybody in this industry knew it, we would be having many more of them, right? I think you can only sort of work towards making a film that you think is going to be a good film. It's a film that's going to really appeal to a large section of the audience. I mean, that's the tricky part, right? See, why is it difficult in India? It's difficult in India because we have probably the most varied and differentiated audience in the world. Right? I don't think any other industry in the world faces such a sort of a different audience. Like every 50 meters, our sensibilities change. Right? So I'm saying, China has this huge box office, but China is very homogeneous in a certain sense. Yes, there's a little bit of, because I've traveled a lot over there and seen it, there's a bit of a divide of the smaller towns and the bigger towns, but it's not as much as us. Like in our country, if you want to make a 300 crore film, you have to appeal to the rickshaw puller in Meerut, and you have to appeal to the South Mumbai banker. And so you need that story. You need a story that can have that pan-India appeal to begin with. It can't be a niche story. Once you have that, a story like, Bajrangi that you mentioned had that pan-India appeal. I believe 83 has that pan-India appeal. It's as exciting for, as I said, a manual labor in Chennai as it is for, a politician in Delhi. Once you have that kind of story, you just have to make it the best way you know how to make it. After that, if you start second guessing that what should I do to make it more appealing to people, chances are you'll fail, because we don't know the other person, Mitrajit. The only person we know inherently 100% is us. So you have to make the film that appeals to you, and then keep your fingers crossed that it appeals to a much larger section of people, because maybe over the years you manage to understand in a certain sense, or your own aesthetics and sensibilities are pretty wide. They're not niche, and they're not sort of very narrowly defined. So impossible in a certain sense to design a 300 crore film. But yes, there are certain stories that come to you that you inherently get a feeling that this is a wide story. And then you know that, okay, this story I don't think can be a very wide story. This probably has its limitations.
Fair enough. Let's rewind a bit. You started as a cinematographer and a documentary filmmaker. How did that stint help you as a mainstream Bollywood director many years later?
Everything I am today is because of my documentary experiences. Absolutely and totally, and that I can say very, very clearly, because ironically, when I came to Bombay as a documentary filmmaker, a lot of people used to tell me, don't tell anybody you're a documentary filmmaker. That the D word was not a good word, apparently. It would make people think, "Arey, ye bahut bore karega, ye pakayega," because that was, unfortunately for us, we a lot of people would say, "Hey, documentaries are boring." And today, I mean, documentary is one of the most exciting spaces that we can see today on all these platforms. But right at that point in time when I was growing up, I think documentary was equal to the films division documentary we would see before the start of a film, a feature film. I remember it was mandatory for us to go and watch that little films division thing. So when I landed in Mumbai, it was actually something that would have gone against me. Today, if I have any USP as a filmmaker, it's the fact that I have a documentary background, and that's something that not only has trained me to approach stories in a certain way with sort of a structure of research and that kind of approach to a story, but in a large sense, a lot of my stories come from the raw material as a documentary filmmaker. I mean, some stories, of course, are directly like Kabul Express is absolutely the story of me as a documentary filmmaker in Afghanistan. New York is actually, the whole backdrop is a subject on post 9/11 illegal detentions that I was researching for a documentary that found its way into New York. Elements in Ekta Tiger are there. Elements in Bajrangi are there. So I mean that, as I said, documentaries really trained me as a person, and there's some great advantages of being trained as a documentary filmmaker. One, that you have to make do with what you have. You are not going to be sitting on a set and say, I wish I had this, I wish I had. Okay, this is what you have. I mean, as a documentary film, what do you have? You just have a camera and one more person with you, right? And then you do your storytelling and you innovate and do stuff and make do with whatever you have. So in that sense, it's been a great training ground. Because I was also a cinematographer, shooting my own documentaries. I think that really helped me understand camera, lensing. So today when I come to a location or a set, I pretty much instinctively know I want my camera here and I want my camera here. Fortunately, I've also been working with Asim Mishra, who's not only my junior from film school, also a DOP. So, and we're really in sync. So 9 times out of 10 we agree on where the camera is going to go, which lens are we going to use. So I can go on. There's so many things that I can say that helped me in my career as a feature filmmaker, which come from my documentary background.
So a related audience question is being asked by Ratna Verma, who asks, many of your films are expansive landscapes, almost like a painting. Does your background of cinematography dictate this?
I think my love for traveling dictates this. I just am obsessed with locations. I will spend months looking for correct locations for my scenes because I just feel they speak, the locations speak. It's not just a backdrop. I look at locations almost as a character in my film. And sometimes the story can happen only in those locations. Kabul Express can only be told in Afghanistan. New York, obviously, that story will hold only in New York. You take it away and put it in another city, it's not going to hold. It won't work in London, it won't work in Sydney. So I really spend time for locations. For Bajrangi also, like okay, the climax of Bajrangi Bhaijaan could have happened anywhere, right? I mean, it's you need a border. It could be in the desert. But I just wanted that snow, those imposing mountains, that the drama of that border, the border that separates these two countries that are hostile to each other, and then the human drama playing out in that no man's land between the two fences. So I spend a long time looking for locations, and I need to be satisfied. I see a location, and instinctively I say, okay, this is correct for that scene. And I think it comes again from my documentary filmmaking. I've often said this: you put me on a set, and I'm a dead duck. I'm just, my creative juices dry up. I feel very sort of hemmed in. I don't feel happy shooting on a set. I'm the happiest when I'm up in the mountains or on a beach somewhere or next to a river and shooting in real locations. It comes with its own set of problems, but I enjoy taking on those challenges.
Okay, we are coming almost to an end. My question is, what's next? What's after 83? There are some rumors about your next project. Are you? What can you share at this moment?
So I'll be very honest. Yes, there are ideas in my mind, but I have not locked anything. I'm a bit of a when I'm in a project, I'm pretty blinkered. I get obsessed, and I don't think of. I just feel I want to be 100% in the project that I'm working on. So maybe because 83, even though the film is complete, it's not out. I'm somewhere in no man's land. I'm in limbo. So I'm not allowing myself to come out of 83 and think of what's next. As I said at the beginning of the interview, I'm not trying to be very productive. So it's not like I spent these last 40 days, churning out a script. Yes, I have been researching on some of the ideas that I'm mulling over. I've been doing some sort of preliminary sort of notes and stuff and structuring. But I've definitely not decided what I'm doing after 83.
So last part, just few one-word answers. Since you are a traveler, your favorite travel destination?
Oh, that's so difficult, Mitrajit. I've been to more than 80 countries in the world. It's very difficult because I'll tell you why. Because I've realized after so many travels, it's not about just the the beauty or how exotic that country. It's about your state of mind at that point in time, and at that point in time, which country or city made a huge impact on you, right? It could be the dullest of countries, but at that point in time, it made a huge impact of you. That'll be your favorite. So in that sense, countries like Afghanistan, Tibet have made a huge impression on me because I've when I was there, I was very young. Tibet, I think, would be a place which had a huge impact on me. I traveled extensively there for photography and for documentaries.
3 places on your bucket list after the lockdown is over.
I was actually wanting to go to Machu Picchu in Peru, in South America. That's a place that I've always been very fascinated by. So I wanted to go there. See, I'll tell you why I enjoy traveling also. Something that after 83 I'll be doing a lot after the lockdown is lifted. I'm a very passionate still photographer. I love street
That's
photography. I
right.
mean, today if somebody tells me what is it that you want to do for leisure, I want to pick up my camera and 2 3 lenses and just walk the streets of some lovely city and just do street photography. So and the number of cities I'd like to explore is huge. So I'm definitely going to be taking at least a month to 2 off and just traveling. And I'm very keen now that I've this recently I was sitting playing with a game with my daughter, and we were doing this on a map as to how many countries we've done, and I never really counted. And we were doing that game, and I think I came to some 85, and then I suddenly realized, hey, can definitely, before I kick the bucket, I want to cross 100. So now I've started looking at countries where I've not been, because it has to be 100 unique countries, right? Not like somewhere where you've been 15, 20 times. So I'm going to I'm going to make that list of those 15 countries more that I need to add to my list.
Okay. Your favorite actor in the world? Anybody?
Oh, again, very difficult, but the people that I've really loved as performances and made a huge impact on me would, of course, Mr. Bachchan. I would have to say, because again, like what I was saying about locations, it's also about actors. At that point in time, who made that kind of impact on you? I think it's impossible today for any actor to have the impact on me today, because after having made so many films and seen so many films and so many performances, the way Mr. Bachchan had on me as a child. I mean, it was God. And and my mom was a big Bachchan fan, and almost every single Bachchan movie I would see first day. So I think, yeah, if I have to
That's fair.
choose one, it has to be Mr. Bachchan
Favorite movie?
of all time.
All
Yeah,
time.
pretty. Again, I go back to the same logic. Uh, at that point in time, what made a big impact of me, I would say Sholay had a huge impact of me. I was really young, and I remember going into that theater and watching Sholay and being completely bowled over. So Sholay, and for whatever reason, today it's difficult for me to articulate why, but there's a film called The Killing Fields, which had a huge impact on me,
That's right.
just a huge impact on me. It in a certain sense, actually, it pushed me towards wanting to be documentary stroke correspondent. I remember that film having a very, very strong impact of me as a child. So I can never forget that film.
Last question. Favorite director other than you?
In India,
No, no,
uh,
anywhere. I mean,
that's again
anybody's work which you really, really admire.
becomes again very difficult. So let me restrict it to India currently in the current crop. Of course, Raju Hirani, some of his films I really love. Like I've often said I love films with politics, right? And I feel Lage Rao Munna Bhai is just the most deliciously political film. So Lage Rao Munna Bhai from Raju is. I'm very honest with you. I follow films. I don't follow directors. So if I mention a director, it's not necessarily that I've loved the entire body of work, but there are one film from that director that's made a huge impact on me. And in the recent past, I'm really enjoying Anubhav Sinha's work. I think Mulk and Article 15 are two films that made one of the deepest impact on me in the last 3-4 years. So I'm really enjoying Anubhav's films over there.
Thanks, Kabir, for your time. All the
That was
best for
lovely.
83 and
Thanks a
hope it
lot.
gets the release it deserves. And I'll
Understood.
drop by very soon to have a cup of coffee with you after the lockdown is over. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.